Hello everybody, today's May 20th, 2013. I know I've been gone for a while. A lot of reasons for that. You know, there are, well, you've seen what's happened in the last week or so. I don't even have to tell you. You know, the IRS scandal, the Department of Justice going after the AP, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. You know, these media organizations have defended the government and all these things, the NDAA, the Patriot Act, because there are Marxists in there, or people at least have those types of leanings that the government can't ever do anything wrong. Well, now they're finding out that's not true. Do I think that, suddenly the country is going to wake up, all these people that have been like this, defending the government and everything they've done? No, they're not going to wake up. Most of them are still asleep. Most of these things just slip right over top of everybody. I did want to bring up something that happened the other day. Actually, it was the 17th. It was in the New York Times, and this is an example of what I'm talking about. We know that they've bailed out the big banks, but they've let your mortgages get closed on, okay? My feeling when all of this happened with the derivatives market and all that, instead of giving the money to the big banks and reinforcing that criminal and that blatant behavior, they should have paid off everybody's mortgages, in the country. And everybody's like, oh, well, why? We can't do that. Yeah, you could have. Look at the numbers. That actually would have been a better idea. Think what that would have done to free up our markets. But instead, they give it to the bankers. And why? Because they want to keep you down. They want to keep you in debt because that's your control. So listen to this. May 17th, New York Times. Front page. You can go look it up yourself. Okay. The headline is Big Banks Get Break-in Rules to Limit Risks. And you know what they did? The federal regulators, bowing down to Wall Street lobbyists, agreed to let them do more derivatives without being regulated. That's basically what it comes down to. No accountability. And they can keep messing, soften these derivatives market rules so that the banks can continue doing the same things that they've been doing that's got us in trouble in the first place. Do you see? That's all they care about. One guy said, I don't care about Main Street. I just care about Wall Street. That's the only thing we need to look at is Wall Street. No, that's not true. That's not where economic power grows. That's where corruption is. I've never been a part of the stock market. Maybe that's not a good idea. But I've never had much faith in it. But more than that, I felt like there was something wrong with it. Now, it's okay to be, invested in a public company and be a part of it. I think that's good. But that's not, of course, what's happened. And we've seen how they play roulette and basically gamble on Wall Street with taxpayer money. Paul Craig Roberts just the other day said something else. He said, the manipulation that the Federal Reserve is doing is destroying us. And they don't care a thing about America. This whole thing with the manipulation of the gold and silver. How is it that you can go into a gold or silver store and there's no gold or silver? So the demand is high, the supply is low, and yet the price is artificially down. It's because they dumped a lot of paper bonds, gold bonds, onto the market, like 400 tons of it. And there's only one entity that could have done that, the Federal Reserve. Just go check it up with Paul Craig Roberts there. Type him in and you'll see all of his things there on Google. It'll come up. Well, I shouldn't have jumped there right away, but I kind of wanted to get that out of the way. Like I said, there's so many things going on. I want to pull back for a minute. I'm in a mountainous area of the country, and it's beautiful. There are two places I really like. I like mountains, storms, things like that. And I like the ocean. Those are my two favorite places to be, to relax, to take in nature, that kind of thing. But I went outside this morning before I really decided what I was going to talk about. We're having a storm right now, and storms are really great. They're restful, even with thunder and lightning, and of course the watering the earth. And they're gentle by and large. Every once in a while you'll have a problem like a lightning strike or maybe the wind gets high. Pardon me. But then it got me to thinking, I didn't look at any statistics, but I'd be willing to make a wager. And the wager is this. Take in all the natural things that happen in nature to us. Earthquakes, fires, storms, Take all of that into account. Tornadoes, hurricanes, those kinds of things. And even plagues, like the Black Plague in the medieval times. I think you could throw all of those types of disasters, natural occurring disasters, although there's a question as to whether the Black Plague wasn't an early form of biowarfare, but be that as it may, we'll just call it a natural disaster at this point. Take all of those together in recorded history. Isn't it crazy how our lives are so fragile? You know, we have these natural disasters occurring to our families, our loved ones, even, you know, people we don't know. The point is, human life is so fragile in a lot of ways. All right? And yet, with all of those natural disasters that can happen to us, all right, what causes the largest number of deaths? And I don't mean, you know, dying of old age or that kind of thing, those kind of natural deaths where you live out of life. I'm talking about violence, either natural or the other, man-made. I would be willing to wager that the greatest threat to mankind is not really mankind, but the people in control of mankind, okay, over the last 6,000, 10,000 years. And they're still in power today because that's what they do. But the point is, look how many people they killed in the 20th century. You know, over 200, 300 million total, something like that. I'll bet you there weren't that many from natural disasters. You know, the earth by and large is gentle to us. Like I said, it has a little cough every once in a while. But nature is gentle. It's slow for the most part. You know, I mean, yeah, you can get eaten by a shark or those types of things, but all of those taken into account, it's very small. Okay? So what is it about our species that causes us to do this? Greed, jealousy, power. Maybe we can eradicate those from our personalities because they're part of us. You know, we have a light side and we have a dark side. And it's which one you serve. You know, feed the wolf, as the old Indian Native American legend goes. What wolf you feed, you know, is going to determine what you do. We need both sides so that we understand both of them. But it's where you put your chips that's going to matter. And unfortunately, the people that seek power, by and large, are the people that don't have your best interests or mankind's best interests at heart. So man is his own worst enemy. And I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. But the point is, that's why we are where we are. See, the founders of the Constitution understood that. That a man, as he gets a little authority, almost immediately begins to, you know, misuse it. All right? So you need to chain them down. You don't trust government. You don't trust the people that you put in power to represent you, to take care of the necessities of state, but to leave the people alone. They never do that. And that was the point of the Constitution. And as most of you know, Benjamin Franklin said that, well, you all have a republic if you can keep it. It's up to us as a people, ladies and gentlemen, or things like this, you know, the Congress and the, you know, submitting to these Wall Street lobbyists. When was the last time anybody took care of you? You know, they didn't pay off your mortgage to get you out of debt, but they're giving them to these banks. Why? So they can continue with their wars and their unjust actions around the world. That's why they're doing that. So anyway, that's what the storm made me think about this morning, was how gentle nature normally is. And again, there are exceptions, but that's the point. They're exceptions. So, all right, enough of that for right now. I did want to say a little thing about the SEAL Team 6 situation and Pat Tillman. And I know I've done this a couple times. The families of SEAL Team 6 were in the National Press Club last week, I think it was. And of course, the Tillmans, the Pat Tillman family, had tried taking their problem with what happened to Pat all the way to the President of the United States, Bush at the time. Never got it resolved, okay? As a matter of fact, there was just more and more, you know, stonewalling and cover-up. And the same thing's going to happen with the SEAL Team 6 situation. Let me read you a couple of names here. Actually, there's more than a couple of names, and I just want you to hear these because these people are going to be important. You know, I think that people have asked me, well, can we get the generals, to stand up for us? Can we get some help from them? And, I've been trying to do that. But, you have a lot that you have to get past with people that are at that position. But let me just name a few people that were at the SEAL Team 6 meeting. And I think you'll like this. Lieutenant General Paul Vallely, retired. Lieutenant General Tom McInerney, sorry, he's retired. Lieutenant General Jerry Boykin, retired. And Admiral Lyons, okay? He's the one that came out and said that Benghazi was likely not just an arms shipment, but they were going to try to kidnap Stevens to then have an exchange of prisoners, so to speak, that we give up the blind sheik rather, and get Stevens back. What would that do? Well, first of all, it would cover the whole movement of the arms from Libya to the Syrian rebels. But also, it would give Obama a moment in the press of, look, we saved the ambassador, and it went bad. Okay? And something similar to this happened back in the 80s, actually late 70s, early 80s, when Reagan was becoming president. And if you look into that scandal, you'll find out that, well, they actually had them hold on to those hostages until the inauguration day of Reagan, and that's when they were freed. It's all political. It's all designed that way. But I read you these names so that you would know that there are people out there. What's their influence at this point in time? Probably not a whole lot, but they understand the system, and so that's why I bring them up. Certainly at a much higher level than I ever got to. All right, and then I'll probably end on this for this short segment. You notice North Korea, we didn't hear anything about them basically since the Boston bombing. And now with all of these other things going on, all of a sudden, it pops back in the news and they fire 4 missiles. There are big people making all of this happen. It's just interesting how it's choreographed, It's real obvious. I looked at Kim Jong-un, and he looks like he's lost some weight. He disappeared there for a while. Looks like his handlers put him on a little physical training, is what it looks like to me. Not a lot, but apparently he's slimmed down just a little bit. So maybe they're concerned about his looks. But regardless, they were out of the news for quite a while, and then all of a sudden they come back with 4 missiles fired all of a sudden. The people that control this whole thing, they want war and destruction. Those two sides of humanity I was talking about, going back to the thing in Genesis with the enmity between the seed of Lucifer and the seed of the woman. I've mentioned before about the misogyny present at the upper levels of this evil group of people, how they really hate women, especially because the woman is the center of what mankind is all about. And they really don't like women. They'll abuse them, they'll use them, but they really don't like them. So that problem is going to continue to get worse as things progress. We need to pull away from them, realize that they really are a spiritual as well as a physical enemy, these people that are at the top. Trying to tell Angelina Jolie. I guess I got to mention that, right? And this is what I'll say about that. First of all, she's a dupe for falling for that. A lot of women will say, no, that was courageous. No, that's like, you're afraid of getting a flat tire on your car, so you take off your tires. It's absolutely ridiculous. And you can apply that same logic to anything else. Preventive medicine. No, that was something about this genetic, copywriting, this genetic, this control over genetics. Patenting, I'll say it right in a minute, the genes, which isn't their right to do so anyway. That's just like anything else in nature. Patent, gene, that's disgusting. But what have they done? Oh, it's a woman's right to have an abortion. Now to have your breasts removed. Oh, that's the womanly thing to do. No, you're doing everything exactly opposite to what a woman should be when you do those things. We need to get you back, ladies. Mankind's going to go down. Remember, you go down, the rest of us go down with you. You got to bring yourselves back up to a higher moral ground. Boy, I'm sorry I went there, but I just felt like I needed to for some reason. And then finally, the IRS, of course, as we mentioned at the very beginning, a couple of other times, the whole situation with going after people for the content of their prayers, their contributors, people going to the meetings, what they're teaching their kids in their churches and their schools, all of that, getting into, really tyrannical behavior. And this was no accident. All right. People that have come forward quietly have said that it all came from the top. And of course it does. It always does. The DOJ with going after the AP. And this is all just the tip of the iceberg. Even people in the liberal so-called media are starting to say, this really is a tyrannical government. They're not going so far, by and large, to say this is why we need the Second Amendment, but that is true. We do need it for that very reason. The First Amendment, if they're going to clamp down on that, and this isn't a new thing, by the way. This has been going on at least for 60 years, if not longer. We could talk about what J. Edgar Hoover did and all of that, but that's just too much information. Let's just talk about the way it is now. All right? They're using the government to take away your freedoms and your liberty. Okay? Under the guise of an enemy that is really insignificant. A manufactured enemy at that. One, as you know, I've already said, that we give supplies, arms, money to, which under our own laws is illegal. It's treason. So I just bring that up because I think it's important that you realize, and I know most of you do, that the government is not your friend. And I've said that in so many terms in the past. Our constitutional government was put together, a democratic republic, to keep the chains on that beast because it will get out of control as it has. And start, as Eisenhower said, to interfere with our liberties and our democratic processes. Not that we're a democracy, but those processes, okay, of by and for the people. Michael Moore, getting mad at people because they don't want to go along with the government. They're the American haters. No, Mr. Moore. No, Mr. Moore. Mr. Marr. Both of you guys. The government is the problem, and we have to keep it under control on a short lease. And to that end, I hope and pray that we continue to work, that we can avert this catastrophe that's speedily coming down upon us. As I said before, I don't have a lot of faith that we're going to be able to change this, but the struggle on the part of our individual souls, spirits, is really important, that we stand up on one side or the other and prepare. It's an old request that I give you all the time. Prepare in any way that you feel that you need to. Food, water, commodities, getting out of the cities, anything that you need to do, and carry on from there. Do what you can. All right. Well, from the mountains and our stormy, wonderful weather, I want to say thanks. I know I've been gone for a while, and this was not really in depth and not really a whole lot of information, just a little bit of time to talk, visit, and we'll get back to